Sankaya Bhikkhuniya Danan, and Yakyaya Bhikkhuniya Vedisa. It's also from Vedisha. I had a note there, but it seems to have got lost. Sangarakita and Koramika are mentioned in several inscriptions. We can sometimes even connect different nuns from, we can see them in Sanchi and somewhere else. Maybe that will come later. And here the picture has disappeared completely. Not very well known, unfortunately. Satdara, a massive stupa, as you can see, as big as Sanchi number 1. This has not been published yet. Was surrounded by a railing. Many of the crossbars and uprights were donated by nuns and women. They have not yet actually been published. Barhut, the well-known stupa at Barhut. Here is one of the dedication pillars, the gift of the Nan Nagila from Mayuragiri, Peacock Mountain. So I have just noted here that in the box you see again, Bhikkhuniya Danan. Sometimes they could be complex, giving the family relationships, as I have said. This is Bhikkhuniya. Kakandiya Somaya Bhikkhuniya Danan, gift of Soma from Kakandi. Again, Bhikkhuniya. Panguraria in Madhya Pradesh has Ashoka inscriptions discovered about 1896. You can see the cave sort of gaping there in the middle of the mountain. I mentioned that these sites connected with nuns and the monuments are along the pilgrimage and trade routes. And this, from Pangurari, you have a wonderful view of the Narmada Valley, which runs from Jabalpur down to the sea. Very important coastal site of Barukacha and so on. Panguraria, you can see the cave there too, has big stone platforms, several large stupas, and probably 30, 40, 50 other stupas running up the hill. There is a western version of Minor Rock Edict 1 in the cave, and there is a record of Ashoka's visit to Panguraria as a prince. There's a debate about the meaning of this. This is Harry Falk's interpretation. I won't go into the details there, but I think it is correct to say that he came there. Imam Desam Punitta. He came to this place on a pleasure tour. Vihara has several meanings. One is a monastic residence, and in Thai it can also mean a ritual building, a large ritual building, and in older language or in Indian usages in Sanskrit it can also mean a pleasure tour or a tour or even a hunting tour. Now another interesting thing in Pangurari is the shaft of a octagonal stone parasol with donative inscription in early Brahmi written in Prakrit. And that is it. It is not short. I don't know if maybe it's 3 meters long. And this stone parasol was donated by nuns. The stone parasol is not for protecting against the sun or rain. It means you don't carry them around. They're on the top of stupas, chak and chak. And the inscription is a little difficult to translate or to get exactly what's going on. But it's the gift of Sangarakita Koramika. This is the one that we've already met with at Sanchi. So we see a nun who is involved in donations at 2 sites. Pangurari is probably 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers over the hill from Sanchi. Her pupils caused it to be made. Pusa Dhammarakita, Dharma Rakshita, and Arahanta. These pupils caused the parasol to be made. And there is the parasol. It's huge, beautiful ribbed stone parasol, which once stood on top of one of the chatra. And you also note, by the way, a lot of the text urging donation, or anisangsa, anisong, in ancient India and up to relatively recent Thailand, often praise the benefits of offering a chatra, a parasol, to a stupa. You get all sorts of benefits. Pauni Stupa in Maharashtra has a very fine railing. You can see it there with an image of Muchalinda, what we know usually as Muchilinda. This is the in a Prakrit form. We now have several Prakritic different forms of Muchalinda. Muchalinda Naga, donated by a nun who is a pupil of Mahayasa. Kanaganahalli, Karnataka, newly excavated stupa. Here too, nuns and lay women made a big contribution. This has just been published. The excavations have gone over the last 10 or 20 years, and it's not yet well known, but the information in this book, I say, sort of revolutionizes the study of Indian art, because we now have extensive inscriptions, labels of Jatakas, the life of the Buddha, and so on in Prakrit from about 2nd century AD, 1st, 2nd century AD, with narrative images and so on from this stupa of Kanaganahalli. So we can no longer just talk about Sanchi or Barhut. We now have to take into account Kanaganahalli. Unfortunately, this huge report, which does have lots of good pictures, has a few serious flaws in it, but you can't really find the picture of the image, the interpretation of the image, the picture of the inscription for that image, and the transcription of the inscription. They're all in separate sections, and there's no real link between them except trying to find the English captions which match. But anyway, that's good fun, I'm sure. So amongst the donors, so this adds to our information about donors, just some examples here. Another nun named Pusa. I think the dating is not the same as the parasol inscription from Anguraria. That has to be checked. Another nun, Puya, gift to the nun Naguya, who's a disciple, Antevasini, of the noble Tera. So this gives a relationship to a monastic. Isi Rakita, Rishi Rakshita, and another pupil of a nun, Himma Rakita. So these are just samples taken quite at random from Kanaganahalli. There are quite a number of others. She's showing me the iPad with the numbers going down. I will explode in 2 minutes plus. There's the cave residents in Sri Lanka. Also, again, we find donations by nuns, usually called Shamana or Shamani. These go back again to 2nd, 1st century BCE. So the question, then there's another pattern of donation for cave temples, but again we have the connection of nuns and women in the donations. And very significant is the image or statue of the Buddha. You could read this quickly as I race through. Dedicatory inscriptions reveal a group of learned monks and nuns connected by teacher-disciple relationships, sponsored images along the Yamuna River Valley. And several of these nuns are called Tripitaka masters. So these intellectual figures, teaching figures, transmitting knowledge and transmitting some of the earliest Buddha images in northern India that survive. And these are massive. This one is 112 centimeters in height, for example. And these are connected. Buddha Mitra actually donated 3 images, several of them damaged. And they are connected to Bhikshu Bala at Mathura, Sarvastiva and Tripitaka master. So here we actually have evidence of an intellectual community studying the Tripitaka and distributing images. Can't go into the details. They are actually called Bodhisattva, not Buddha images, and often saying on the Chankrama, on the walkway. Buddha Mitra, Buddha Dasi, Another one. Two bhikshunis came together to make the pedestal of this image. This Kanishka Huvishka, this is the Kushana period, 1st, 2nd century AD, a little bit later than the stupas that I've talked about. And the Bhikshuni Buddha Deva, seated image dedicated for the welfare and happiness of all beings. Huvishka, here we also have images by Upasika, by lay women. So it shows the diverse sponsorship of the Buddha image. And this I would consider an intellectual and aesthetic movement. So if we're talking about the emergence of female intellectuals, I think in Buddhism they emerge in this donation, in the planning of monuments and so on. And I'll leave the rest. This continues into later periods. The donation by nuns continues 6th century, 9th century, perhaps the latest donation, which is also one of the latest records left by a bhikshuni, Shakya Stavira Vijayashree Bandara, is 12th century from Bihar. So we know that there were nuns making donations in Bihar at that time. So that is the last. So, in conclusion, one sentence before I explode. So I think that women were in the vanguard of of the movement of Buddhism, which we know through the movement of relics. In the earlier period, relics, stupas, and ritual complexes, and then in a slightly later period, starting with the Kushanas, 1st, 2nd century AD on, in the movement of Buddha images. So these are connected with planning, aesthetics, and ritual practice. And it's quite clear that a number of these nuns, or these women, were leading teachers. Tripitaka master. Tripitaka is not a small thing, even there might be dispute about exactly what Tripitaka means. It is a very important title, and it means someone has mastered the then know whether they've memorized it or simply mastered it is another question. So, something has happened at last. Okay, thank you.